What you're looking at here is an article from Sputnik International, SputnikNews.com. Not Sputnik International, correction on that. SputnikNews.com. This is a Russian-based news site that I believe has been banned. I don't think you can access this in Europe anywhere. You can still access it here on these shores, or at least in this country. But I think they used to have an app, and it's no longer there. Just like with RT, another Russian-based news outlet. But I just want to look at this story because this is a crazy, crazy out there story. And I'm not saying we should believe it. I think we should take it with a grain of salt. The same way that we should take with a grain of salt anything that we read in the Western press. Because the Western press, even though it's not directly state affiliated, like Sputnik News and RT, it's still it's still de facto propaganda. And I'm of course, as you know by now if you've watched my channel, I'm extremely jaundiced concerning the duplicity and the general dishonesty of the Lugan press in the West. But this is a Russian news source. You're not going to hear this story. If this story is real, you're not going to hear it talked about in any Western newspaper or magazine. None of the mainstream ones, anyway. And if you find it in some independent journal, it'll probably be heavily censored and heavily deplatformed, just like Sputnik is and just like RT is. Okay, so this article says or tells us that bodies of tortured civilians with carved out swastikas found in Mariupol basements. I'm probably not pronouncing that place name correctly because I'm an ignorant American. Pardon me for that. So this is written by someone named Tim Corso. Doesn't sound like a Russian name. I guess they employ Westerners for the maybe the English language version of their journal. But not to read the whole thing, just to get the highlights. Forces of the Donetsk People's Republic, DPR, with support from Russian troops, are currently fighting remnants of the Azov Nationalist Battalion in Mariupol. Now, the Azov Battalion is the neo-Nazi battalion, the neo-Nazi military organization that's established in Ukraine. Nobody debates that. Nobody denies that. Well, the people who deny it just don't know or are ill-informed. But anybody who has any awareness knows that the Azov battalion is real. And it's not just them. There are a ton of other nationalist military affiliated groups that are neo-Nazis, and not neo-Nazis in the if you're against affirmative action, you're a neo-Nazi kind of way that we hear liberals talk about it. This is like real hardcore people, whose ideology is not much different from that of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, except they're established out of Ukraine. So the story reads: the bodies of victims of Ukrainian nationalists have been found in the basement of buildings of Mariupol, some of them severely mutilated. The Russian Defense Ministry has reported. The ministry clarified that the basements were previously occupied by Ukrainian nationalist forces. Corpses of civilians were found with signs of inhuman torture. Neo-Nazi symbols and swastikas were carved on their bodies, the ministry said. All right, again, I'm not saying that this is definitely true. I'm not saying we should believe it because it's in this news source. Of course, this news source is biased, but it's biased in the direction that we never hear. So I think reading it provides balance right now, because all we hear in the West, all that we're allowed to hear, the only thing that is permitted to reach our ears and eyes is Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad. So maybe if things like this are true, if this is actually going on, this adds a bit of nuance to the Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad mantra that we're subjected to nearly all the time from the mainstream news. Okay, the article goes on to read the head of the Russian National Defense Control Center, I won't try to pronounce his name, further said that some of the civilians rescued from Mariupol have shared stories about neo-Nazi fighters throwing grenades into basements filled with women and children. He also reported that a member of the Azov Nationalist Battalion had shelled civilians trying to withdraw cash from ATMs or trying to get humanitarian aid using mortars installed on various vehicles. He said these attacks claimed lives of 3. I think it's meant to be 3. It says "the," but it's 3, and left 10 more injured. All right. So the Donetsk People's Republic is located in the eastern part of Ukraine, where the population is more Russian than Ukrainian, and the majority of the population wishes to be independent of Ukraine and wishes to be allied with Russia. I think those are things that are pretty well known if you're at all in the know about the what's going on over there. But of course, most people aren't. Most people are just brainwashed and propagandized, and such is the way things are right now with the NPC types. Sorry to use that dehumanizing term, but some people just don't think very much and aren't very discerning. That's all I mean when I say it. The Defense Ministry report comes as forces of the Donetsk People's Republic, together with Russian troops, are clearing Mariupol of the remaining forces of Ukraine's Azov Nationalist Battalion. All right, so they keep repeating nationalist. That's something I've noticed here, which that does seem like they're trying to leave some impression in our minds, that nationalism is bad. And I'm not an anti-nationalist at all. I think nationalism is good, but if these groups are actually committing these kinds of atrocities, that's definitely a bad thing, and that's definitely not something you hear about in the West. Russian forces were deployed to Ukraine. Okay, let's just going back to the beginning. So Donetsk and Lugansk are real places, and it really is true that they want to break away from Ukraine, and they have been shelled by Ukrainian forces to try to prevent them from breaking off from the rest of the nation. So this is what I mean when I say that the situation in Ukraine is complicated, even though you're not allowed to say that. I still find it extraordinary and amazing that you're not allowed to say the situation in Ukraine is complicated. That if you say something that's essentially moderate, not taking one side or the other, then you're immediately accused of being a stooge for Putin. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, I wanted to share this story because I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if these atrocity stories of the Azov battalion uh, killing civilians, carving swastikas into their bodies. I mean, it could just be atrocity propaganda. I don't know, but it's something we should. And of course, I can't get to the bottom of it, and you probably can't get to the bottom of it either. But this is still something we should pay attention to. Um, what's of course supremely frustrating is if this story gets if enough people hear this story, what I'm sure we will hear is a quote unquote debunking or a quote unquote fact checking, which says no, this didn't happen. Nothing like this happened in Mariupol. Mariupol. Sorry. Um, but we shouldn't trust the fact checkers any more than we should trust whoever's writing this story. Trust no one. Only believe the things that you actually see with your eyes and hear with your ears. And even then, I mean, gosh, like I said, we live in an age of video trickery. So just be very careful and very discerning. And I'm interested to hear if anybody else has any comments on this story. Whether you think it's this story contains veracity or not, let me know.